Why Belfast riot sentences have ignited a national two-tier justice debate. Why the Belfast sentences are becoming a national story. The violence that erupted in Belfast generated widespread condemnation. Attacks on property, disorder in the streets, and confrontations with police led to immediate calls for arrests, prosecutions, and tough sentencing. Few mainstream voices defended the rioting itself. What surprised many observers was the speed. As arrests were made and cases began moving through the courts, a different argument emerged. The focus shifted away from the riots and toward a broader question. Why do some offenses appear to move through the justice system at extraordinary speed, while other serious crimes seem to take years? The Lucy Connolly effect. No individual case is referenced more often in this debate than Lucy Connolly. Connolly received a 31-month prison sentence after pleading guilty to an offense of stirring up racial hatred following social media posts made during the aftermath of the Southport murders. The Court of Appeal later rejected her challenge to the sentence. For supporters of the sentence, the case demonstrated that online incitement during periods of public disorder can have serious real-world consequences. For critics, it became a symbol of what they see as disproportionate punishment for speech-related offenses. Regardless of which side people take, the case became a political lightning rod and remains one of the most frequently cited examples whenever sentencing consistency is discussed. Why comparisons drive public anger? Much of the public frustration comes from comparisons. Some of these comparisons are legally weak because completely different offenses operate under different sentencing frameworks. Yet politically, they remain powerful. The average person does not study sentencing guidelines. They compare outcomes. They see one case involving public disorder or online communication resulting in a custodial sentence, then compare it with reports of violent assaults, sexual offenses, burglaries, or repeat offenders receiving suspended sentences, community orders, or early release. Whether those comparisons are technically fair often becomes secondary to how they feel emotionally. This gap between legal reality and public perception is where much of the current anger exists. People are not always comparing laws. They are comparing outcomes. The Lucy Letby comparison. Lucy Letby is another name that repeatedly appears in online discussions, even though the comparison is fundamentally different. Letby received multiple whole life orders and some of the harshest punishments available under British law. The comparison people make is not about sentence severity. Instead, it is about time. The Letby investigation involved years of inquiries, reviews, evidence gathering, and legal proceedings before convictions were secured. Riot cases, by contrast, often involve video footage, identification evidence, and relatively straightforward prosecutions that can move much faster. Legally, the distinction is obvious. Politically, however, many people simply see one system moving rapidly and another moving slowly. That perception fuels claims that justice operates with different levels of urgency depending on the nature of the case. The bigger fear behind the debate. The real issue is trust. Most people calling for consistency are not arguing that rioters should escape punishment. Many support strong penalties for violence, disorder, and attacks on police. The concern is that equal justice should feel equal. When citizens believe some crimes attract immediate attention, while others appear to drift through years of investigations, appeals, and delays, confidence in institutions begins to erode. Once that confidence weakens, every subsequent case becomes another piece of evidence in a larger political argument. That is why Belfast has become more than a local story. It has become a symbol. To some, it demonstrates that the justice system can act decisively when it chooses. To others, it highlights what they believe is an inconsistency that has existed for years. The debate is unlikely to disappear. The Belfast riots will eventually fade from the headlines. The argument they have triggered probably will not. Questions about sentencing consistency, free speech, public disorder, violent crime, and institutional trust have become central issues in modern British politics. The danger for government, courts, and political leaders is not simply criticism of one sentence or one case. The greater risk is that growing numbers of people, begin to believe the system applies different standards to different groups and different offenses. Whether that belief is justified or not, public trust is ultimately shaped by perception as much as by legal reality. That is why the Belfast sentencing debate matters. It is no longer just about Belfast. It has become a referendum on whether the public believes justice is being applied consistently across the country.